The trap was never meant for rabbits. It sat rusted and forgotten in the woods behind the old Whitmore estate, its jaws agape, teeth jagged and cruel, half swallowed by moss and the slow decay of the forest floor. The locals, in their quiet, knowing way, called it the rabbit trap. The name stuck, not because it ever caught any rabbits, but because of its appearance small, vicious, and almost ritualistic. But no one, not in living memory, had ever seen a rabbit caught in it. Only bones, and they were never rabbit bones. Eli, just 17 and teetering on the edge of adulthood, had grown up with the stories. His grandfather, his voice raspy and his breath thick with whiskey on late nights, would whisper them. He'd talk about how the trap wasn't baited with meat or anything you could see. It was baited with something no living thing, animal or otherwise, could resist. He swore it didn't snap shut in the way a normal trap would. No, it lured. It drew you in, beckoned you closer, and made you want to kneel before it. Eli, of course, dismissed them as ghost stories, the kind of tall tales old men tell to spook the young. But while he didn't believe in ghosts, he did believe in dares. And on the very last night of summer, with the air hanging heavy and the promise of autumn chilling their skin, a dare was made. He and his friends sharp-witted Mara, loud-mouthed Jace, and quiet little Lena slipped past the groaning iron gate of the Whitmore Woods. The atmosphere inside was instantly different. The air was thick, wet with a fog that clung to them like a shroud. The ancient trees seemed to lean in, their branches like crooked fingers, as if they were eavesdropping on their trespass. They followed a faded hand-drawn map and found the trap exactly where it was supposed to be, nestled at the base of a crooked elm ringed by a strange circle of dead leaves that seemed immune to the natural cycle of decay. It was smaller than Eli had imagined, almost delicate, like a macabre piece of jewelry handcrafted by a madman. Even in the encroaching darkness, the metal held a faint, sickly shimmer. Jace, ever the skeptic, broke the silence. "No way this thing still works," he muttered, prodding it cautiously with a long stick. The trap didn't move. Mara, however, seemed to feel something else. She knelt beside it, her eyes wide. "It looks like it's waiting," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Lena, the youngest, said nothing at all. She just stared, her small face pale, her gaze fixed on the rusted jaws. Eli felt a surge of bravado, the kind that only comes from being watched by your friends. He stepped forward. "All right," he announced, his voice a little too loud in the dead quiet. "Rules are simple. Touch the trap. Count to 10. Don't flinch." He crouched down, the damp earth cold against his knees. His fingers hovered, inches from the cold iron. The moment his skin made contact, the barest brush against the edge, something changed. It wasn't the trap. The trap remained perfectly still. It was the woods. The silence became absolute, a heavy, pressing weight. The fog seemed to coil around them, thickening until they could barely see each other. And then a low thrumming started, a pulse from the ground beneath him, vibrating up through his bones. 1, 2, 3, the trap didn't snap. But Eli found he couldn't move. His fingers were stuck fast. Not caught, not pinched held, as if the trap was gently, curiously tasting him. 4, 5, 6, a whisper slithered through the trees. It wasn't made of words, just a sound. The sound of breath, hot and impossibly close, right against his ear. 7, 8. Lena let out a sharp, terrified scream that cut through the silence like a knife. 9. Panic flared in Eli's chest. He yanked his hand back with all his might. The trap released him instantly. But he wasn't empty-handed. Something came with it. A dark smear stained his palm, blacker than ink, thicker than blood. As he stared in horror, it writhed like a living thing. They didn't need another word. They ran. They scrambled through the grasping branches and over unseen roots, fueled by pure terror, not stopping until the iron gates of Whitmore Woods were far behind them. Back in the sterile safety of his bathroom, Eli scrubbed his hand until it was red and raw, but the stain wouldn't fade. It seemed to have become part of him. Worse, it was spreading. Thin, black veins crept up his wrist, disappearing under his sleeve. That night, his sleep was a fever dream filled with rabbits. Hundreds of them, their eyes wide with terror, their mouths stretched open in silent, unending screams. And standing behind them, a tall, thin figure watched, its head crowned with a rack of antlers. The next morning brought a new, colder horror. Lena was gone. Her bed was soaked in mud and damp leaves. Her shoes were missing from their spot by the door. Her bedroom window was wide open, but the screen was still perfectly latched from the inside. Mara, her voice trembling when she called, swore she saw something standing at the edge of the woods that morning, a shape half hidden in the mist. Watching their houses, Jace had gone completely silent. He wouldn't speak to anyone, just stared into space with haunted eyes. And Eli felt it growing inside him, the stain, the hunger. It was a gnawing emptiness that food couldn't fill, a profound weariness that sleep couldn't fix. He started avoiding mirrors because when he did catch his reflection, his eyes weren't his own anymore. They were whiter, darker, the eyes of prey waiting for the predator to strike. He knew he had to go back. Drawn by a force he couldn't explain or fight, he returned to the trap, alone. It sat there, just as he'd left it, jaws open, waiting patiently. He didn't dare touch it this time. He just spoke to it, his voice a hoarse whisper. "What do you want from me?" The trap gave no reply, but the woods did. A voice, soft and fundamentally wrong, echoed from the trees around him. "You." Panic seized him again, and he turned to run. But the forest itself seemed to conspire against him. The familiar paths twisted and reformed. Trees shifted, blocking his way. No matter which way he turned, no matter how fast he ran, the crooked elm and the trap were always there, just ahead of him. He stumbled, his foot catching on a root, and fell hard. He landed right beside it. The trap snapped shut. The sound was deafening, a final, metallic crack. But it wasn't his leg or his arm caught in its teeth. It was something behind him. A hand, a pale, small hand, Lena's hand. He scrambled backwards, his heart hammering against his ribs. Lena stood there, looking at him, and she was smiling. Her smile was wide and wrong, and her mouth was full of dark fur. Eli opened his mouth and screamed, a raw, primal sound of utter terror. The trap, its purpose served, slowly opened again. Its jaws were clean. And this time, with nowhere left to run and nothing left to fear, Eli crawled inside. Thank you so much for watching. This story is a reminder of how some local legends are best left undisturbed. If you enjoyed this dive into the darkness, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next story. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the next one.